What is network address translation and how this NAT works? So as the name is suggesting, network address translation means some address is converting or changing or translated into some other address. And these two addresses are one private, one is public. And this goes to and fro. So we are talking about IPv4 addressing scheme, class 4 addressing scheme. And as we know, there are 32 addressing space. That means it is a 32-bit dotted decimal format where we have 2 to the power 32 possible addressing. So it's total almost equal to 4 billion. But how many people are we? In whole world, we are around 7.5 to 8 billion people. And there are 4 billion addresses in IPv4. I'm not talking about IPv6 because it has 2 to the power 128 addresses. So there is no problem there. But here, the scenario is, we have a public IP and a private IP. Public IP, only the public IP can be used or given in internet. But we have private IP, class A, B, C here, D and E we don't use. So in this private IP, let me give you a scenario first. There are two houses, two companies, two organizations for example. In first house, there is a husband, there is a wife. In second house, there is a husband and there is a wife. Okay, now, so they want to get connected to internet. So you need to give IP to each one of them, that is the public IP. Is it a feasible solution? If there is a big company, you cannot give IP to everyone. So we have a private network kind of thing. So 10.0.0.1, you can give it to the husband, and 10.0.0.2 can be given to wife because this is in the private IP address space. And in the another house, the different husband can have the same IP, that is the private IP, 10.0.0.1. Similarly, the wife can have 10.0.0.2. There is no problem because they are separate network, different network and private network. Okay. Now imagine if this is a big university, there can be multiple private addresses. Now everyone wants to get connected to the internet, but the private IP cannot be used in the public domain, or you can say internet. So what will happen? Here comes the NAT, the router. So what they will do is, whenever a husband wants to start the conversation or want to get connected to internet, so it will send the packet, but the source IP is 10.0.0.1. But if the router IP is public IP, which is 16.1.2.3, so this 10.0.0.1 will be converted to 16.1.2.3, then it will be transferred or transmitted to the internet. Because the internet, wherever is the host, that host will understand, okay, this is a public IP. When it will send it back, there will be a table by the router network address translation table. This table will tell that this IP, that public IP which I sent, it has go to 10.0.0.1. So there will be a reverse translation from public to private. Okay, same thing can be done with another house also. So two private IP or multiple private IP can be seen as a single public IP through router, and there will be some translation going on from private to public, public to private. Because only public can be used on internet, private cannot be used on internet, private can only be used in a network, a private network. So NAT stands for a network address translation, private to public, public to private. What is the main purpose? As I suggested, see, public IP addresses can only be used in internet. They are fixed. 2 to the power 32, that is 4 billion addresses are possible. We have class A, B, C, D and E we cannot use. In ABC, most of the, the addresses are say used or blocked or fixed. For example, 127.0.0.0, this is a loopback address. Normally we use 127.0.0.1, which is the loopback address. But this whole address space from 127.0.0.0 till 127.255.255.255 can not be used. It is unused. So we have limited IPv4 addresses. So we need to conserve them, and NAT does it all, both for security and economic goals. So NAT is a process, is a method. Here we have a local network with private IP addresses. So NAT is a process to map multiple private addresses inside a local network to a public IP address. This public IP address can be used on internet. And this is how we transfer the information onto the internet, because a private network, say host, cannot connect to internet directly. They have to have a translation. Okay. But the problem, one can also perceive that two applications are using the same application, or same, say YouTube, or same thing. Then how are we going to decide that when the packet is coming, which to send, which host to send? That will be confirmed by the port number, because port number, IP with the port number will tell you what application, which system wants, which is going to get connected to the internet. So the port number, that is the masking of the port number of the host with another post number in the packet, that will be routed to the destination or internet. So it then makes the corresponding entries of IP address and port number in the NAT table. So there are two things: IP address, what is the public IP address, what is the private IP address, and what is the port number. So these three entries will be in the table, and this table will be looked upon whenever you have a transmission or communication from private to public and public to private. So organization that wishes or want multiple devices to employ a single IP address, they use the NAT, as do most of the home routers. Whole of your organization with multiple hosts with private IP address will be known by a single public IP on the internet. So NAT generally operates on a router or firewall. Now let us see an example. How does it work actually? So here we have on the left three systems, and this 192.168.100.3, all these are the private IP addresses. So there is a network, there is a small network being formed. So these computers are there. So now the private IP addresses are different here. Now first system wants to connect to yahoo.com. When it wants to connect to yahoo.com, its personal private IP is 192.168.100.3, and the destination will be 209.131.36.158. The source is source, destination is Yahoo. So how are we going to connect? You need to have the port number also, because the another system also will be talking to Yahoo at the same time. So there will be a port also. Okay. Now this private IP cannot be seen on the internet. So this private IP has to be converted into public IP. Which public IP? Which public IP address? The address of the router. So the router address, which is here 145.12.131.7. Now this 122.168.100.3 will be converted to 145.12.131.7. Along with the port number will also be changed, 385526.282, and then it will be sent to the actual destination, which is your Yahoo. Okay. So there are two things. One is the IP changing from private to public. Also the port number will also be masked. It will be given different. Alright. But when the packet will come back, it will come to the router. And now the router will see the translation table, and depending upon the translation table entry, it will send it to the proper host. So how the network address translation or NAT works, let us see and understand it with an example. So we have a private network. This is single host. Let us assume we have hundreds and thousands of hosts. Host B, host C, host D, host, name any. So assume that we have a large private network with the private IP. Private IP are fixed. It can be only taken from the right table you see. Now it wants to get connected to the internet, or a destination whose IP is 200.100.10.1. So how the connectivity will take place? The source is 10.0.0.1, which is an IPv4 address, which is a private address. And the destination is 200.100.10.1. But private is not at public, public is not known at private. So when it is passing, it will reach the router where the NAT will take place, network address translation will take place. So how will be the packet will be formed? So this will be the source IP and destination IP. What is the source IP? Initial, first stage. The source will be 10.0.0.1, no problem with that. The destination will be what? 200.100.10.1, no problem with that. The source want to get connected to a server or a website. So now the router will do what? It cannot send that private address because it is not known. So it will embed, it will change this 10.0.0.1 to its own IP, which is a public IP, which is 150.150.0.1. And the destination IP will remain the same, 200.100.10.1. So now this has started from router and it has to reach the destination. So first block is from host to router. The second is from router to the destination. Okay. Now, what will happen when the website or the say portal will return back or will respond back? It will return back not to the directly to the host. It will send it to the router. So this is the source starting, this is the destination starting, which I showed you. And when it will pass the router, the source will change, because now source 10.0.0.1 has to be changed because it is public. It will not be known to the internet. So it has to be changed to a public IP, which is 150.150.0.1, and destination will remain same. Now there will be a response. When the server is going to respond, what will be the packet will be formed? The source will be, of course, 200.100.10.1. That is on the internet, some website portal is there. Right? Doesn't know the host because router is talking to it. So what is the IP? Router has already changed the IP. So it will be, destination will be 150.150.0.1. Okay. But when the router gets that packet, it has to send it to the proper host. For that, it will do what? It will do the network address translation. It knows that 10.0.0.1 was changed to 150.150.0.1. So it is my duty to change 150.150.0.1 to 10.0.0.1. So what it will do, the router, while giving it back, it will change its own IP to the private IP. Okay. So finally, when the router will deliver the packet to the host, required host, along with the port number, it will change the source will be, of course, from the server 200.100.10.1, and now it will change the IP to 10.0.0.1 so that it reaches a proper host with a proper port number. So basically, hosts are having in the private network. In this, we have private IP. It has to be converted or translated into public IP so that it can get connected to the internet. And this has to be done one way and another way also. So there are three types of address translation. One is the static NAT. So here the static NAT is all about translating one private IP address to a public one. Okay. The public IP, please remember, will always remain the same. These are the private IP addresses. We know already about that. These are fixed. So static NAT is all about that. One private IP address to a public one. Public is always same. Second one is the dynamic NAT. What will happen? Here the private IP addresses are there, list of private IP addresses they are there, list of public IP addresses are there, so there will be a mapping. There will be mapping from private IP addresses to the pool of public IP addresses. So this NAT will be, the translation will be dynamic, not static. Okay, it can change. Now port address translation, PAT, there will be a question, you may ask, what if we have multiple hosts working with the same application, same port, same thing. So in order to differentiate that, we have to have a port number, because IP combined with the port number, because every application will be talking at certain port. So that port is fixed for every application. So in port address translation, PAT, one public IP address is used for all internal devices. These are all internal devices. Only one IP, public IP will be used. But what will be the difference? Different port number is assigned to all of these private IP address. Okay. One public IP address for all internal devices, but different port number for each private IP address. This is also called as NAT overload. Okay. NAT overload. So I hope you have a fair idea about NAT now. Thank you so much.